Hello, everyone, and welcome to this Real Women, Real Purpose talk show, live in the On Purpose Woman magazine and global community Facebook page. I'm Kathryn Yarborough, and I am your host today. I'm one of the two hosts of the Real Women, Real Purpose talk show. I am the global facilitator of the On Purpose Woman global community and the creator of the Manifesting Clients Academy. And I'm here today with Karen DaGrava, a certified integrative nutrition health coach. Hi, Karen.
Hi.
We're going to be talking about yo-yo dieting and what to do about it because it isn't fun. And I am so looking forward to hearing from Karen and learning all about her wisdom today. Karen began in the late 1970s to become passionate about nutrition. So that's been a while. She does not look like she's been around since then. She has. And so it must be something that she's doing right. She learned what was considered healthy at the time, and she followed diet trends, but ended up yo-yo dieting as a result of emotional eating and lack of self-love. Now, Karen is a certified integrative health coach, and she helps women easily make healthy choices and be the best they can be so that they too can have the energy and vitality that she has and go out and make a positive difference in the world, which is what we need. The older we get, we need that energy and vitality. So welcome so much to this, Karen, this interview.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I'm so looking forward to this. But let's make sure that everyone who's listening, and by the way, folks, if you're listening to this, if you're watching live, say hello. If you're watching the replay, say you're watching the replay. Let us know that you're here. Be sure to ask questions as we go along and point out things that touch you. That Karen shares here. But first of all, let's talk about the term yo-yo dieting. I'm somewhat familiar with that term, but it's possible that not everybody is. What do you mean by yo-yo dieting?
So yeah, yo-yo dieting can mean a number of things to different people. In my book, and for me personally, it has meant fluctuating in weight over the years, going on a diet, going off of the diet, going on another diet, going off of that diet or the same diet, caring about what I ate or not caring about what I ate. But you also talked about emotional eating, and so that plays into all of that, which I am intimately familiar with, unfortunately. So when I say yo-yo dieting, to end yo-yo dieting, I'm not just talking about I'm through with this, I'm just gonna be fat and happy. Because I know somebody, I was working at well, the last job that I worked at, I did a weight loss challenge. It was like New Year's, and people were interested. So I said, well, let's just do a weight loss challenge. And I put that out, and I put notices everywhere. And this one guy that I worked with, a big guy, he wrote, no thanks, fat and happy. That's what he was, just content to stay. So that's not what I mean, not just to give up. I'm talking about ending this cycle and maintaining a comfortable, healthy weight. And healthy is a very key word for me, because personally, I feel like everything you do your whole life, but well, I won't go into all the details, leads up to the quality of life that you're going to have in your later years. People think that it's just old age that you get arthritis, that you get diabetes, that that people get heart disease and cancer and all the things. So we can prevent that through our lifestyle. And even if you feel like, well, or you were told, it's in my genes. I've learned a lot about genes too. Genes are something that they're like light switches in our house. They're there, but it's whether we turn them on or leave them off as
That's
to how
interesting.
they express themselves in our health. And so,
Well, so let me stop you for a second.
okay.
Okay. Let me tell you what I'm getting so far, just to make sure we're on the same page here. So ending yo-yo dieting in your book is where a person will stop going up and down with their weight, basically, is what, okay, I got to fit into that dress for the wedding, so let me lose some
Right.
weight. Okay, lose some weight and then go back to the old way of eating, and then their weight goes back up, often even higher than it was before. And oh no, my weight's up higher, I got to lose some weight, let me go back on that diet again. That's the yo-yo dieting you're talking about, right?
Yes.
So if we're talking specifically about that, because you've said several things here that are super important, which is great, Karen. I love your passion for your work. I mean, off the charts. You are so passionate about inviting people to choose health. And I so respect that and appreciate that about you. With regard to yo-yo dieting and that weight going up and down, since that is partly what we said we talk about, is there a is there a reason to not do that yo-yo dieting? I guess is what I'm trying to say from a health perspective.
So there's different schools of thought about that. And,
Okay.
I've read a lot of the science behind, I don't really know for sure 100% if it's bad for you to lose weight and gain it back. And, I think so. I believe that it is, but I can't say that with scientific, evidence right off the top of my head.
Okay.
But so when I said there's your genes are something that's there and you can turn them on or not, you can also add these light switches throughout your life based on your lifestyle. So if you're eating like crap, never moving, smoking, whatever, unhealthy things that you're doing all your life, you're adding light switches. You're like an electrician, just putting them into your into your
So
house.
that, so we don't want to do that.
We don't
Okay.
want to do that. No. I think the more genetically predisposed you are to having issues with a particular thing, whether it's diabetes or heart disease or whatever, the more careful it would probably benefit you to be in terms of not turning on the switches that are already there. And there are people in their 20s and 30s who are lacking, energy and vitality too. So, I mean, if you want the healthiest, most productive life and to feel great all the time, there's things you can do.
Okay.
So
So
there's
you
that.
want,
Now, when we talk about yo-yo dieting, we're talking about gaining and losing and gaining and losing. But the fact that so many people, particularly in the United States, but now it's spreading to be global, the fact that people gain so much weight compared to generations before, like 100 years ago, 200 years ago, you just didn't have all these people gaining weight and getting sick. The fact that that's happening now over the last generation and a half is due to the convenience foods, the processed foods, the things that the food industry has done to us. And a lot of it is, I don't want to say secretive, but it's secretive. They've literally hired craveability experts, scientists who can look at what these foods are doing to our brain chemistry and how addicted we're becoming to the foods, and making sure that their foods have as much of that in there as it can, so that we are addicted to that food and want to keep buying. Lay's had the, I don't want to single out anybody, but they had the advertising campaign, you can't eat just one. And that's exactly what it's about. You can't eat just one because they're causing you to crave that thing by the chemicals and the items that they're putting into the food.
I so appreciate your passion.
Weight over your lifetime, it's not your fault. but it
I
can.
love it. I love it. It's not my fault. I was just learning about how you build a tribe, and you build a tribe by having something out there that is the bad guy. And right now you're naming the bad guy as the food industry of these processed foods. So you could build a tribe around people who are going, it's not my fault that I did this. However, once we have the information, bad on me if I don't listen to someone like you and make some changes. I mean, I can be like that guy you talked about and say, you know what, I'm fat and happy. I'm not making any changes. I'm going to keep eating those Lay's potato chips or whatever it is. But let's say someone like is listening to this, and there's I think a lot of shame around this yo-yo dieting thing. There's a lot of you spoke about emotional eating, that there's emotion about the emotional eating. There's real shame about it. There's shame when we do it. I mean, there's a lot of negative feelings. To me, maybe there isn't a physical problem that yo-yo dieting causes. It probably depends on how high and low a person goes, what it does. Of course, I don't know either, but I do know that emotionally it is not good for anybody to do that.
Absolutely, because the more you feel that shame that you're talking about, and think, why can't I do this? Why, even when you are trying, like I said, there's all these hidden things in food. And then I could go on and on about the food industry and the marketing. The marketing has caused us to believe so many things about food that are not necessarily true. Just for an example, pork the other white meat, like it's better for you than red meat, or that chicken because it's white is even good for you. Well, the food industry is putting all kinds of things into the chicken that you don't even realize. They're shooting it full of saline solution and all kinds of things, not to mention all the things that we do know about, the unnatural. Well, maybe you don't. I mean, a lot of people don't. Let me give you an example. My mother, she says, and I heard her, she was just in town last week, and she said a number of times, if it wasn't for the fact that I grew up eating meat, I probably couldn't eat meat. But I just have to think to myself, my meat comes from the store. Like, she can't even think about what goes into
It's
what goes up
actually
at the store.
That it's actually a cow or a chicken or something like that.
Yeah, and the way they were treated and what was, fed to them. So what my point was that most of the concentrated animal feeding operations, CAPOs, which is where a lot of the cheap meat comes from, that the fast food places use, that the grocery stores sell, they feed unnatural diets to these animals. And so that is causing them to be less healthy than they otherwise would be. I could go on and on, but anyway, I don't want to spend too much time there.
Let me ask you this. Are you encouraging people to not eat meat at all? Do you work with people to only have a plant-based diet?
I have recently transitioned to what I call a predominantly plant-based diet, because I have felt so great. But even before that, for the last 25 years at least, I have concentrated on searching out only the grass-fed beef, the certified humane, eggs, and the things that I know are treated well, fed better, all that. So I had another train of thought. Let me think of what I was going to say. I lost it. Oh well. So I can, and there has been, okay, so I learned a lot about the blue zones. Those are the areas in the world where people live the longest, healthiest lives. Mm. And Dan Buettner, he worked for the National Geographic. He went to those places where statistically they have the longest lives, and found these like 104-year-old person that biked to work and all these so he took a look at their diets and their lifestyles, and it's not just about what we eat, but all those places in the world do eat a wide variety of plants and a minimal amount of meat, if any, depending on where they are, meat or fish.
So, so when you work with clients, do you only want to work with people who want to go in that direction of decreasing the meat, or are you
What I was going
okay?
to say is, while I was eating low carb for a number of years, I was eating quite a bit of meat and eggs and cheese. But like I said, I was looking for the healthiest versions of those. And I was eating as much of the low carb vegetables as I could in order to stay within my, carb count or whatever. So I know how to support people in that. And I think that as long as you're getting a really wide variety of plants, I think there's no way I would work with somebody who wants to do the carnivore diet. They're eating only animal products. I don't think that's healthy. It's not sustainable for the planet. There's so many reasons. I would not want to work with somebody. That would not be my.
So I so appreciate your integrity and your clarity about that. So for anyone who is listening, if you're inspired by what Karen is saying and want to reach out, I think the first step to work with you is to have a conversation, right? And that is where you would find this sort of stuff out. If that person really wants to just eat meat, or just to have the conversation about, is this a fit? Of course, at this point, if someone's heard you talking, they're going, okay, well, all I wanted, they might call you up and say, well, I thought that I was just supposed to be eating protein, and the best way to do that is with steak and chicken. So, what's wrong with that? And
the majority of the diseases and the illnesses that people have are not caused by, I don't know any that are caused by a protein deficiency. I mean, there might be one or two, but people don't generally suffer from a protein deficiency in this country. Fiber, on the other hand, is it's unbelievable that we should be getting 25 to 35 grams of fiber minimum. That's for women and men per day. And the average is 15 or less on the standard American diet, which the acronym for that is SAD, because it is.
Okay. All right. So people, those of you who are listening, and I'm going to check in just a minute to see if there are any comments. If you're here listening to us live, share something about your thoughts. I mean, obviously, Karen is extraordinarily passionate about everything that she's saying. And I love the passion about eating healthy and inviting us to get off, meats and chicken and however we call it. And because of the impact on the planet, because of how those creatures are treated. So I'm inspired by hearing you. Anyhow, if you're listening, post your questions, and I'll check in just a second for your questions. If you're watching the replay, let us know you're watching it and how you're feeling about what Karen's having to say. If you have a question, share it. It's okay if you have a different opinion. And we learn by a healthy discussion. But obviously, Karen, I really get that you have researched this, you've learned, you've become a certified, what is it? Certified
Integrative Nutrition Health Coach. Yeah.
Thank you. It's a lot of words there.
Additionally, in addition to the program that I went through to become a certified Integrative Nutrition Health Coach, I have also done a ton of research on my own. I read all kinds of books. I listen to lots of podcasts, and all these different people, doctors and scientists and people that have studied habits and what visualization can do. And I know you're a big fan of visualization. So, let's use my mother for an example again. She's like, well, you spend a lot of time chopping vegetables, and I just don't really want to spend time doing that. Well, okay, but you spend time doing other things that you prioritize, like you watch Jeopardy every night or whatever. And I look at chopping the vegetables as self-care. And I'm putting not only, the care into it, but the love into feeding myself the healthiest foods. So some people, want to go for a pedicure, which I love to do too, but some people take a bubble bath every day or whatever for their self-care. I consider that a big part of my self-care is and there's so many fabulous recipes. I don't always cook with recipes. I'm not that great at following rules, but
I'm noticing you're like going off in your own tangent. No, you're not. You're doing great.
I
I love it.
look at all these recipes and I'm like, oh, I want to make that, and I want to make that, and I want to make that. So even if there is something that I could go buy that I could eat instead, I'm like, but I don't have time for that because I really want to make this. And it sounds so good. So I use it as self-care. And I was talking about visualization though. So if you are somebody who thinks you don't like to chop vegetables, you can trick your brain. You can visualize yourself chopping the vegetables and making the healthy food. And if you visualize it enough, your reticular activating system in your brain actually thinks that's something that you do, and it becomes an easier task. So I've got a lot to share about habits and visualization and making sustainable changes so that what you're doing and all the things that are involved in self-love, so that I'll tell you something that I never told you before.
Okay.
I, as an emotional eater over the years, I would go and sneak and eat things where nobody could see, as if it wasn't affecting me, because obviously I didn't love myself enough to care not to do that. And so there'd be like dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of Christmas cookies around, and a dozen or two would be gone in a 10-minute period because I could. And then you want to talk about the shame and the guilt and everything that comes along with that. So I really feel like I have a grasp on how to handle that, and I feel like I can help people to change those types of behaviors and to truly love yourself, which is so important. And it just makes every part of life so much better. Love in general. I mean, people get so upset. You'll be driving along the road and somebody, just gets upset with the way you're driving and just like flips you off or cuts you off or, beeps or just beep, It's like when that happens to me, I visualize literally little purple, I'm purple, you know me, I'm all purple. Little purple hearts are coming out of me, just going to them, just like, I'm not going to let their behavior change who I am. And I'm going to send them love because clearly they need some. And there's a lot of people that need some love.
So you've come a long way from that woman or girl who would sneak the cookies, the Christmas cookies, because I can imagine that you was not sending love to people, but instead was hiding in shame, at least right around the times that she was eating the cookies or whatever.
Much thanks to people like Marianne Williamson and lots of others whose books I've digested and studied. And yes, I feel like I've read so many books and I've done so much research. I just feel like I've done the work for you so I can help you.
I love it. Okay, well, let's talk about that for a second. So before I ask you, how would you help me if I were to work with you, or how would you help anyone if they were to reach out to work with you? What I want to let people know about your Facebook group. Tell folks about your Facebook group, and then I'll share a little story about my experience in your Facebook group.
Okay. My Facebook group is called Stepping Stones to Perfect Health. And by stepping stones, I had the idea of making sustainable little changes and steps along the way, because that's ultimately what's going to get you to your best health. So I invite you to join my Facebook group. Like I said, it's called Stepping Stones to Perfect Health. You can just search that and I'll let you right in.
Fantastic. So I'm a member of Stepping Stones to Perfect Health, Karen's Facebook group, and she posts sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes these pictures of yummy food. A couple weeks ago or last week, I don't know exactly when, Karen, you posted some roasted vegetables and you made some comment about how you like doing this. And there was some red peppers and yellow peppers. Anyway, it just looks so yummy. Well, I like to roast vegetables, but it's one of those things that is like gets on the back burner. If you heard, I mean, I'll tell you, I pick up dinner most of the time. And so anyhow, I'm not as passionate as you are about cooking at all for different reasons. But periodically I do, and I do chop vegetables, and I do experience that labor of love that you're talking about. It's very loving to chop vegetables for me. But last week, twice, actually, I think it was 3 times in the last 2 weeks, I've roasted vegetables.
Yay!
I know. So you inspired me to take a little tiny step. But so anyhow, let's talk about if I was a yo-yo dieter and I wanted to make a change, because I don't think anybody's going to reach out to you unless they want to make a change. I mean, they may, but they won't fork over money probably. If they may reach, and folks, I bet you could just reach out to Karen and have a conversation with her just to see what happens. And we'll tell you how you can do that in just a minute. But if someone was listening and they're like, okay, I love this woman. I love her passion. I want her on my eating healthy, living healthy team. What would you do? How does it work? How would you help someone? Let's say it's me.
So the best way, I think, is to sign up for my 6-month program. Small sustainable changes take time. So I think a 6-month program is, I want to say, a minimum of a place to start. I do offer a 3-month program, but I prefer the 6-month program because it sets you on the path in a better way. I mean, you can start with the 3-month program, but I prefer the 6-month commitment.
So what would I do? What would we do if I worked with you for 6 months? What would happen?
So we could meet in person if you happen to be local, and I know you're not, but most clients I work with on Zoom. So I would set up a weekly meeting time that's good for both of us. And we would meet for about an hour once a week. And, we can talk about what's going on. And it's similar to a therapy session, but it's more specifically about, your health. So we could talk about how your week went, set some goals for the following week. What were your challenges? How did something you were trying to do get derailed, and what can we do differently next time? And how are you feeling about, how are you thinking about whatever issues came up?
Does everybody that you work with have a weight goal, or is that something that isn't something that you invite people to track? I know there's different opinions on that.
Well, people do have weight goals because they like them. Personally,
I don't. I haven't gotten on the scale in years. I don't like to get on the scale. But
so there's a lot of factors that go into how much you weigh on the scale. And I don't think it's important. I don't think the numbers on the scale are important. If you feel great, you look the way you want to look, and you're healthy, your blood tests are coming back with great numbers, that's what really matters. So it also depends on, your own personal goals in terms of, do you want to spend time working out? Because if you're building muscles, then that weighs more on the scale, but it's also going to sculpt your body in a different way. So if you want to get rid, if you want to get rid of the chicken fat that hangs down off the arms and things like that, you have to do a little bit of weight training for that. Weight training is good for everybody. So I do encourage it, at least to some extent. There's cardio, there's weight resistance training, and flexibility. So those are the three main areas of working out. And so a little bit of each of those is really important. Maybe some yoga, which is also good for your mind and your relaxation and things like that to calm that. Everything is important in terms of, you can't lose weight if you're not getting enough sleep. You can't be healthy if you're not getting enough sleep. So sleep is important. We can talk about all kinds of issues that affect your sleep and how, you should turn off all screens a couple of hours before bed. But most people know that, but there's so many other factors that go into a good night's sleep. And and I have some of the science behind that, and hydration, just all kinds of different areas. So we can talk about any of those that are important.
So when you work, let's say you were to work with me, and I know you do a free discovery call, is that?
Yes.
Okay, so let's say I was watching you and I said, okay, I want to work with this woman. I'm excited. She's so passionate. I am aligned with your beliefs and I want to feel better in my body. And what would I come up with my goal? Like, I'm not sure. Would you help me come up with some goals and intentions for our work together? Or,
Sure, I could help come up with goals. If you have your own goals, we can work with that, whatever you need.
Okay.
So yeah, you would set up a discovery call with me. You could email me at Karen DaGrava, MD @yahoo.com. And I'm sure we can put that somewhere where people can see it. It's my last name is DaGrava, all A's. A lot of people like to put an E in the beginning. That won't get you there. So email me, or if you're a Facebook friend, or you're in my Facebook group, you can also contact me through Messenger. We could set up a discovery call. It's like a 30-minute free call, and we can talk about exactly what you need to talk about.
Okay. Okay. So Karen DaGrava, all A's, DaGrava, Karen, Karen, Karen DaGrava, MD is in Maryland, or M is in Mary, D is in donkey, at gmail.com.
Very donkey.
Karen DaGrava, MD, at gmail.com. Okay. So if someone is watching and you're interested, because, I think that if I was ready, I'd be like, yeah, let's have a conversation. And I get it that it would take probably 6 months or longer to make some long changes. If I did start working with you and it wasn't helpful, if I had said I would do 6 months, can we stop? I mean, that's probably a dumb question to ask here. So ignore that question. That's what I would ask if I was in a session. If I was in the discovery call with you, I'd ask that question.
No,
so
you need to make a commitment. I'll answer that anyway.
You have to make a commitment?
I think it's important to make a commitment. Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Okay. So can you see my, like, oh my God, what would it be like to actually work with you or someone like you on how I take care of my body? That would be an interesting conversation. Long story, everybody. Y'all don't need to know my story, but I too used to eat emotionally, and probably still do a little bit, and could make some positive changes. But
not gonna lie, I would discourage the McDonald's trips, but
but I do roast vegetables, and I do eat a lot of vegetables. So
I think that's great. And the fact that you're journaling every morning and taking time for yourself is fantastic.
Thank you, Karen. All right, my friends. So as we begin to wrap up, is there any small step anyone who's listening could take that's across the board useful for everybody, or are the steps that you would help people with individually unique for them?
I think that everybody, almost everybody, can increase the amount of vegetables that you're eating. So that would be the number one thing. I think it's easier to add something in that's going to crowd something else out than it is to give up something. So, I might say, well, you should give up sugar, or whatever. But no, I think
Hmm.
my overall tip for everybody right now is like, if you generally eat meat, potatoes, and some kind of a vegetable for dinner, change it to 2 vegetables. Make a smaller portion of meat and more vegetables on your plate. Have at least half your plate be vegetables. I and the variety. The more variety you have. Oh, let me tell you something else, because I think this is really interesting. A lot of people think, well, I don't like X, Y, or Z vegetable. You can change that. And I just recently learned the reason why. I knew you could because I have done it. But the reason why,
Brussels sprouts, Brussels sprouts.
Brussels sprouts, it was Brussels sprouts. I didn't used to like Brussels sprouts, and I liked almost every vegetable. And I was like, Brussels sprouts are gross. Now I absolutely love them. But I started eating them when my daughter had moved back in and had come up with this recipe. And it had, I don't even know what she put in it, but it had honey or some brown sugar, or I don't know what it was, but they were so good. And I started eating them that way. They were roasted, I think, but I'm not even sure. Anyway, your gut microbiome, which we've just started learning about over the last 15 years. We really did not know. I don't know if you, but lots of people have recently been hearing about the gut microbiome. And 15 years ago, nobody heard about it at all. It was just not a thing. And there was a doctor, Dr. Will Bolsowitz, who graduated from medical school in 2006. He said it was right after he graduated that he learned, or that this study came out. Maybe not even a study. It was some kind of scientific breakthrough where they learned how the microbiome functions and how important it is, the vagus nerve that goes to your brain, and how it's important for not only your physical health, but also your mental health. So the things that influence your microbiome is lots of things, chemicals and things like that you're exposed to, but the foods you put in there. So when you don't eat something, let's take beans. Beans is a good example. People think, well, I don't like beans, or beans don't agree with me. It's because you don't eat them. So when you don't eat something, the microorganisms in your microbiome decrease. So there's just hardly any. And when you put some of that in there, there's not a lot of that to eat it up. But when you just put a tiny bit in, a little bit at a time, in other words, keep trying something you don't like, that those microorganisms, those bacteria increase because you're feeding them. So now the 15th time you try the beans, that's why you always tell the kids, you have to keep trying this, you have to keep trying this, you have to keep trying this. And a little aside, if there's autism involved, it might be 75 times before this actually happens for them. But anyway, that's one other story. The microorganisms, the bacteria increases to the point where it's asking you for that food. So it's actually changing your taste for that food.
Wow.
And I've done it with Brussels sprouts was the first thing I noticed, but kimchi, that was another one. I learned in my health coaching training that fermented foods are so good for your microbiome. And I was like, but kimchi, I don't like kimchi, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to just, I was at the store, I saw this thing of kimchi. I was like, I'm just going to buy it. I'm just going to take a bite of it every day, and I'll get my little fermented food in, and it'll be good for me. After a while of doing that, literally like one bite, pretty much every day, I started loving it. Now I'll be like, I want a whole bowl of it. And I mean, the Koreans only eat a little bit of it. It's like a side. Um, but I love it. I love it. And I never thought I would like it. I always thought it was gross.
Oh my goodness. Wow. So, all right. Thank you so much, Karen, for all of this wonderful information, for your passion, for your excitement about inviting all of us to love ourselves better through what we're eating and how we're caring for ourselves and our bodies and our minds and our hearts. I am so grateful to you for inspiring me to want to be healthy and to choose healthier, make healthier choices like I did this past week. 2 weeks, a few
Yeah.
times. I know. So
Thank
thank you.
you. Thank you. Yes,
Yes.
I don't want to be the 80 to 100-year-old that spends 20 years in the nursing home with a diaper, because that's just not the quality of life that I'm interested in.
Yeah, me too. Just take me away if that happens. But anyhow, in the meantime, there are things that we can all do, including me, including you listeners, because Karen's already doing them. And one small step we can each take is to add a little bit more vegetable into our life. So reach out to Karen at Karen DaGrava, MD at gmail.com. Karen DaGrava
Yahoo.
at Yahoo. Okay. Oh, sorry. Cancel. Karen DaGrava at yahoo.com. Karen DaGrava at yahoo.com. Karen
Karen
DaGrava,
DaGrava,
MD.
MD.
Karen DaGrava, cancel, y'all. Let's do this all again. Karen DaGrava, MD at yahoo.com. Do I have it right?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. And then, and of course, join her Facebook group, Stepping Stones to Perfect Health. So thank you everyone for joining us for this Real Women, Real Purpose talk show live in the On Purpose Woman magazine and global community Facebook page. Tomorrow on Friday, August 13th, Jenny Robertson will be back at 2 Eastern, and she'll be interviewing Elizabeth McCain about what they did think they were going to be talking about the post-pandemic world. But here in Florida, we're not in post-pandemic, and I think across the country and around the globe, we're not. So I'm sure they'll be talking about something related to the pandemic and what we're all experiencing. And Elizabeth is a lovely woman, as is the other host of our shows, Jenny Robertson. You'll enjoy that. There's a list of all of our upcoming, we've got a few more Real Women, Real Purposes talk show topics in August, and all of the July, August topics are also in the On Purpose Woman magazine, which you can see the current issue at onpurposewomanmagazine.com. So go to onpurposewomanmagazine.com and check out the lovely, wonderful issue, the articles and the ads. And if you loved this interview and want to share it with your friends, please do so. Karen is just so filled with wisdom and passion. Please share her with others. You can share it straight from Facebook, or if you're watching it on YouTube, you can share it from YouTube. And if you haven't already gone to our YouTube channel, go to YouTube, type in On Purpose Woman Global Community, and subscribe so that you get updates on our wonderful interviews, because we interview real women, with a real purpose, right? I mean, this was a real woman with a real purpose, and I love that. So I'll see you next time, and enjoy August or whatever month it is when you're watching this. There we go. Drink water. To our health. Drink more water.
And the best way you can prevent COVID from getting into you is to stay the healthiest you can be.
Very good. Thank you so much, Karen.